Most people have no idea how much power they give away just by talking too much about themselves. And the wild part? They think they're being open, when really they're making themselves way too easy to read, predict, and influence. Carl Jung spent a huge part of his work exploring how your inner world becomes stronger when you stop handing it over to everyone around you. Not everything needs to be shared, and definitely not with everyone. This video isn't about being secretive or cold. It's about understanding the difference between being genuine and being exposed. When you reveal the wrong things, people start projecting their own assumptions onto you. You get boxed in, misunderstood, and sometimes even manipulated without realizing it. But when you protect certain parts of yourself, you become clearer, sharper, and harder for people to twist into whatever version of you they prefer. So today, we're breaking down 5 things, Jung-inspired, that you should never reveal if you want to stay grounded, respected, and in control of your own story. These aren't random keep this private tips. These are the exact areas where oversharing silently sabotages you. Let's get into it. The first thing you should never reveal is your deepest insecurities. And I don't mean the casual stuff you joke about. I'm talking about the real internal pressure points, the things you're still trying to understand about yourself, the traits you haven't fully accepted yet, the doubts you only feel when you're alone. These are the places where you're the most vulnerable, and that's exactly why they shouldn't be handed out freely. Carl Jung talked about the shadow, not as something to hide in shame, but as something that becomes stronger and healthier when you work with it privately. Your insecurities belong in that category. When you reveal them to just anyone, you're basically giving people a manual that explains how to get under your skin. Even people who don't mean harm can accidentally reinforce those insecurities or frame them in a way that makes you feel smaller. And here's the tricky part. Once someone knows your sensitive spots, they can use them, intentionally or not, to shape how you behave. You become more cautious, more apologetic, more hesitant, because now you're aware that they've seen the rawest part of you. That changes your dynamic with them, sometimes permanently. Working on your insecurities privately gives you space to grow without outside opinions twisting the process. You don't need commentary, you don't need comparisons, you don't need someone else's version of your weakness. What you need is clarity, and that only comes when you handle these things inside your own world, not in front of an audience. So keep those deep insecurities protected, not because you're hiding, but because you deserve a private space to become stronger without anyone interrupting the process. The second thing you should never reveal is your long-term ambitions. Your biggest goals, the long game you're playing, the direction you quietly know you're heading. Those deserve protection, not public announcement. People think sharing their ambitions makes them look confident. But more often it just exposes their plans to opinions, doubts, and pressure they didn't ask for. Carl Jung often highlighted how easily people project their own limitations onto others. And that's exactly what happens when you tell someone your long-term plans too early. Instead of supporting you, they start filtering your dreams through their own fears, their own failures, or their own comfort zones. Suddenly, you're surrounded by subtle negativity, and you start questioning the very thing that once felt exciting and natural. There's also the issue of momentum. When you talk too much about what you're going to do, your brain tricks you into feeling like you've already achieved something. You lose drive. You lose discipline. And worse, people start keeping score. They watch, they compare, and they judge your progress before you've even had time to build anything. Your biggest ambitions need silence while they're forming. They need privacy while they're fragile. They need time to grow roots before anyone else gets a say. Once you've built real traction, once you've become stable, consistent, and certain, then you can speak about it if you want to. But until your goals can stand on their own, let them live quietly inside you. Protect your long-term ambitions the same way you protect your sense of direction. This isn't secrecy, it's strategy. And it keeps you in control of your focus, your confidence, and your future. The third thing you should never reveal is your private conflicts. And this one is tricky because people often think that being open about their internal struggles is automatically healthy. But the truth is, not every conflict you're dealing with needs to be shared while it's still unfolding. When something is raw, confusing, or unresolved, it's incredibly easy for other people to misinterpret it, and even easier for them to misinterpret you because of it. Carl Jung emphasized how important it is to give your inner world space to develop without outside interference. When you expose your internal conflicts too early, people start forming opinions about you based on moments you haven't even processed yet. It freezes you in a temporary state, one you might grow out of tomorrow. But they'll still see you through that snapshot. And let's be real, not everyone knows how to handle someone else's internal struggles. Some people overreact. Some minimize it. Some use it to create a narrative about you that you never agreed to. And some, without meaning to, turn your private battle into something dramatic or messy simply because they don't understand the context behind it. Your private conflicts are exactly that. Private. You should have room to sort them out without outside pressure, outside interpretation, or outside influence. Talking about them too soon can make you feel judged, misunderstood, or boxed in, right when you're at your most uncertain. When you work through your internal conflicts quietly, you come out on the other side clearer, stronger, and way more grounded. Then, if you choose to share something later, it comes from a place of understanding instead of confusion. That's the difference between exposing your struggles and communicating your growth. Keep those raw, live-in-the-moment conflicts close to your chest until you have made sense of them. They're not secrets. They're simply not ready for the world yet. The fourth thing you should never reveal is your past mistakes that you've already outgrown. Everyone has a history, and everyone has messed up, learned, adjusted, and moved on. But the moment you start retelling old mistakes to people who haven't earned real trust, you give them a blueprint of a version of you that no longer exists. And once someone hears an old story, they often lock you into it, even if you're nothing like that anymore. Carl Jung pointed out that your past is something to integrate, not something you need to keep dragging around like a badge or confession. When you overshare old mistakes, especially ones you've already healed from, you unintentionally shrink yourself in other people's eyes. You hand them a lens that makes you look smaller, even though you've already grown beyond that chapter. And the thing is, people rarely hear your past neutrally. Some will judge you for it. Some will use it to set limits on what they think you can become. Some will repeat it to others. And some will bring it up in moments when it benefits them, not you. Not because they're malicious, but because most people aren't careful with someone else's history. There's also a subtle psychological trap here. Talking about old mistakes can drag you mentally backward. You relive things you've already resolved. You reopen doors you closed for good reasons. And suddenly, you're explaining yourself for a version of you that doesn't even reflect who you are anymore. You don't owe anyone a detailed archive of your past. What matters is the way you live now. If a mistake has already been integrated, if you've taken the lesson, applied the growth, and changed your direction, there's no benefit in constantly reopening the file. Keep your outdated mistakes private. They belong to a chapter you've already finished, not a conversation you need to keep repeating. The fifth thing you should never reveal is the weak spots in your boundaries. And this one is subtle, because most people don't even realize they're exposing these things when they talk. Anytime you openly admit the places where you tend to give in, where you hesitate, where you feel unsure, or where you struggle to say no, you're basically telling people the exact areas where your limits are the easiest to push. Carl Jung often talked about the importance of understanding your own structure, your patterns, your reactions, your tendencies. But understanding them yourself doesn't mean handing that information to everyone else. The moment someone knows exactly where your boundaries wobble, they know how to shape your behavior without you noticing. Not always in a harmful way, but definitely in a way that influences you. And here's the problem. Once someone sees the soft spot in your boundaries, they start treating it like an access point. They know which tone to use, which timing works, which type of request you struggle to refuse, or which topics make you uncertain. Even good people can unconsciously lean on those areas because it works. But when your boundary weak spots stay private, you have room to strengthen them without outside pressure. You get to work on them at your own pace. No one is watching. No one is testing you. No one is waiting to see if you'll slip. You're rebuilding from the inside out, and you stay in control. And here's the bigger idea. When people don't know your boundary weaknesses, they're forced to interact with you based on how you show up, not based on where they think they can bend you. That keeps relationships clearer, cleaner, and far more balanced. Your boundaries don't need to be perfect. They just need to be yours. And the parts that feel unsteady deserve privacy while they get stronger. Keeping that to yourself isn't being guarded, it's being wise. Now let's flip it. If there are things you should never reveal, what should you reveal? Because staying private doesn't mean shutting down. It means being intentional. Jung believed that when you show the parts of yourself that are grounded and well integrated, you create genuine connection without losing your center. So, here's what is worth revealing. First, reveal your values. Not in a dramatic way, just through how you speak and behave. When people know what you stand for, not what you're struggling with, it creates clarity without exposing your vulnerabilities. Values show direction. They help people understand you without having access to the private layers you're still working on. Second, reveal your strengths, the ones you've actually developed through experience. Not bragging, not overselling, just being straightforward about what you're good at and where you're reliable. People respond well to grounded confidence, and sharing your strengths doesn't expose anything unstable or fragile. Third, reveal your boundaries in their firm form, not their weak spots. It's completely fine to say what you don't accept, what you won't tolerate, and where your limits are. But notice the difference. You're expressing the boundaries you've already strengthened, not the ones you're still figuring out. Clear boundaries earn respect. Fourth, reveal your growth. Not the messy part while you're in it, but the insights you gained after you've already worked through something. Once you understand what you learned, you can share it without feeling exposed. That's the version of your story that actually helps people and doesn't drain you in the process. And fifth, reveal your direction, not your detailed plans. It's okay for people to know the general direction you're heading, improving your life, learning new skills, setting higher standards. That gives them a sense of who you're becoming without handing them your blueprint. When you reveal the right things, you stay authentic while protecting your inner stability. You stay open without being exposed. And you stay real without giving away the parts of you that are still developing. This is the balance Jung pointed toward. Sharing from a place of strength, not from a place of unfinished vulnerability. The next section is all about the silent power of being hard to read. And I don't mean playing games or being fake. I mean keeping a little mystery in your life so people can't predict every move you make. When you're fully transparent about everything, your insecurities, your ambitions, your conflicts, people start thinking they know you. And once they think they know you, they start controlling the way they interact with you, sometimes without even realizing it. Carl Jung would say that the more predictable you make yourself to others, the less inner space you have to grow freely. People project their own assumptions onto you when they think they get you. That projection can shape the way they treat you, the opportunities they offer, or even the subtle pressure they put on you to conform. Keeping some things unreadable creates natural boundaries without you having to enforce them verbally. Being hard to read also keeps your presence strong. Think about it. People respect the person they can't fully figure out. They listen more carefully. They tread more thoughtfully. And they value the parts you choose to share because it feels intentional, not casual or careless. It's like being a book that only releases a few pages at a time. People stay curious, interested, and attentive, instead of skimming through your life and forming snap judgments. Here's the key. You don't have to be closed off to everyone. You can share, laugh, connect, and be warm. But some parts of your inner world, your strategy, your growth, your fragile spots, should stay private while you're still building and evolving. That's how you turn privacy into a superpower. People engage with you on your terms, not theirs. And that gives you freedom, clarity, and control over who you let influence your life. The next section is about how privacy actually protects your mental space. Think of it like this. Every time you share something personal, you're inviting opinions, judgments, and reactions into your head. Even if people mean well, their feedback can crowd your mind, confuse your decisions, or make you second-guess yourself. Carl Jung understood that your inner world needs quiet and boundaries to grow. When it's constantly exposed, it becomes harder to think clearly and act intentionally. Keeping certain things to yourself gives you space to process life on your own terms. You can weigh your options, work through challenges, and make choices without outside noise interfering. It's not about being secretive. It's about preserving your focus and protecting your energy. The more selective you are, the less mental clutter you carry around, and the sharper your intuition becomes. Another big point. When you overshare, you also risk letting other people's expectations define you. Their judgments can shape your self-perception and even your actions without you noticing. Privacy acts like a buffer. It keeps your mind clear, your goals on track, and your sense of self independent. So the lesson here is simple. Protecting your inner life isn't selfish. It's practical. It's how you stay grounded, make better choices, and maintain control over your own story. The quieter you are about the sensitive parts of yourself, the louder your actual growth and results speak. The next section is all about understanding the difference between being honest and being unfiltered. A lot of people think honesty means saying everything that pops into their head, but that's not the same thing at all. Jung would point out that your inner world isn't a public broadcast. It's a place for reflection, growth, and careful integration. Sharing every thought, feeling, or struggle doesn't make you more authentic. It just makes you exposed and sometimes misunderstood. Being honest means speaking from a place of clarity and stability. It's sharing what is grounded, real, and constructive. Being unfiltered, on the other hand, often comes from impulse, frustration, or a need for immediate validation. That's when oversharing happens. And when you overshare, you're giving your energy away to people who might not appreciate it. Or worse, people who might use it against you, even unintentionally. Here's the practical difference. Honesty builds trust, connection, and respect. Unfiltered speech often creates confusion, misinterpretation, or friction. You can still be warm, relatable, and open without dumping every part of your inner life onto someone else. Jung emphasized knowing yourself first, understanding your patterns, your thoughts, and your feelings, before you decide what belongs in the public space. That's how you stay genuine without being exposed. So, the next time you feel like sharing something personal, pause and ask yourself, is this honest or just unfiltered? That tiny pause can protect your energy, your focus, and even your relationships, while still keeping you authentic and real. The next section is about the kind of people who don't deserve access to your inner world. Not everyone in your life should know your insecurities, your goals, or your private conflicts. Carl Jung understood that who you let into your psychological space matters just as much as what you reveal. Some people will listen, but not really understand. Some will judge, and some will store your vulnerabilities for later, whether consciously or not. A big red flag is anyone who responds to your openness with criticism, gossip, or subtle manipulation. They aren't evil, they just aren't equipped to handle your depth responsibly. Oversharing with them doesn't build trust. It gives them tools they could use to shape your behavior in ways you don't want. Even people who seem supportive can unintentionally project their own fears or agendas onto your story, which can leave you second-guessing yourself. Another sign is people who always want more than you're ready to give, pushing for personal details, asking for explanations, or pressing your boundaries. Jung would call this a misalignment between your inner world and theirs. You don't have to force connection where it doesn't naturally fit. Protecting your private layers ensures that only those who are truly trustworthy, mature, and respectful get access. The takeaway here is simple. Selective revealing is a form of self-respect. It's not about being cold or distant. It's about controlling your energy and keeping your inner world safe. By choosing who gets access, you protect your growth, maintain clarity, and avoid unnecessary complications, while still being authentic and present with the people who actually matter. So, there you have it. 5 things to keep private, why it matters, and what you can share instead. Remember, this isn't about hiding who you are. It's about protecting your growth, your energy, and your inner world while still being authentic. The more intentional you get about what you reveal, the clearer, stronger, and more in control you become. Keep some mystery, guard your boundaries, and watch how your presence changes, quietly, powerfully, and on your terms.